Welcome to the Jedi Ranger. I'm JohnBerry555, and today I'm continuing my series of Master Retro reviews with Season 4, Episode 10, Quo Vadis, Captain Chandler. So, there's some Latin in this title, so I hope I got it correct. But anyhow, the premise of this episode is that casualties come in, and one of the casualties is a captain who believes himself to be Jesus Christ. Frank and Margaret think he's faking it, so they bring Flag in to expose him. Meanwhile, Hawkeye has a brilliant idea. Hey, let's get an actual psychiatrist here who understands the mind and can actually understand what's going on. So he gets Friedman to come. And so Sidney Friedman basically does conclude that the Air Force captain, who from Flag we learn is actually Captain Chandler, has come to believe himself to be Jesus Christ. Not because he's actually Jesus Christ, but because basically dropping bombs, killing a bunch of people who did him no direct harm, caused him to have a mental breakdown, and the way he dealt with that was by, I'm not a killer, I'm Jesus Christ. No, his compassion took over. And Sidney's medical opinion at the end is that while they may be able to help him become Captain Chandler, or just himself again, he should never be returned to combat. And this episode actually does not feature a laugh track, which I think is really good because it does touch on a pretty thing. PTSD is ultimately what's going on in this episode. Captain Chandler's, basically killing people was traumatic, and eventually he snapped and decided he's not going to kill anymore, and in his condition, in his mental breakdown, concluded that if he's not going to kill anymore, he must be Jesus Christ. There's a couple things to also note. He has a pretty good theological foundation too, because one of the questions that Sidney asks him was basically, does God answer all prayers? And Chandler responds, yes, but sometimes the answer is no, which is a very good thing that a lot of people do forget. Sometimes you may get a negative answer. If you are someone who does believe, I should put that qualification in. Again, also too, that's also, I think, a good example, good thing to add, because that implies that Chandler, before he had his breakdown, made a prayer where he maybe, asked something, and it, basically asked for the war to end, or asked for him to be able to stop bombing, and because a tear did come down his chin at the time, his cheek, I should say, not chin. And while that zone there, I think, provides some that Chandler had a pretty good theological understanding of his Christian faith, it also reveals that very likely part of his breakdown may have involved him not getting an answer to his prayer that would have perhaps helped him deal in a less drastic way with the trauma he experienced by killing so many people that did him no harm. Though I gotta say, there's some parts of this episode that makes me think that they had thought this episode might have been done when Frank was still here, namely because Margaret, this is the only time she ever goes over Colonel Parker's head for something she did all the time with Henry, so it makes me think part of this episode was retooled, but not every part of it. Again, could be several different things as well with that. But like I said, this is a really good episode. I like how they didn't have a laugh track. While Flag does provide the comedic moments in this episode, they never, the core of it, everything with Captain Chandler, him believing himself to be Jesus Christ, they took seriously, and I don't believe they went into any disrespect in that topic. And also, too, this episode reveals Radar's actual first name, Walter. This is the first time that is ever revealed on screen. And I think it's kind of fitting that that is the way they do that. Basically, Chandler is leaving and Radar asks him to bless his teddy bear. The first time I watched it, I thought that was the name of Radar's teddy bear. I gotta be honest. But his birth name is not Radar, it's Walter. Or should we even say his Christian name that he was baptized with. And also too, that scene also is supposed to show to us the audience as a way to confirm that Chandler just believed himself to be Jesus Christ, not actually Jesus Christ. Because, for one, if he was Jesus Christ, he would have known Radar's real first name of being Walter. But at the same time, I feel like Jesus would be respecting people's choice to be called by what they prefer. So, could go either way on that. But in the context of when this episode was made, the idea that Radar's real name, he did not know, is showing to us that this Chandler just believes himself, confirming Sydney's diagnosis. But also too, Jesus Christ, he would have probably introduced himself as, assuming if you believe Jesus Christ is God and thus knows all and all that, he would be able to speak in any language, so we're going to ignore that part. But also, Jesus would probably introduce himself as Jesus, son of Joseph, or Jesus of Nazareth. So that's probably how he would actually introduce himself, because that's how that stuff worked back then, and would make a lot more sense, because Christ comes from the Greek variation of the Hebrew word Messiah, a title, and for a name, that would be not really given. Maybe Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus son of Joseph, the Messiah, the Christ. Yeah, that could have been done. I think, if I remember my Bible correctly, a few times I think he might have mentioned something along that line. But again, I'm relying on memory there, and I did not do my research like I probably should have. But all this to say, I think this episode not only is really good, but handles the different topics they bring up in a very respectful way. And really, the only time they do a joke is with Klinger at the end, where he dresses up as Moses and hopes to get discharged from the army that way. And again, that was a good way of ending the joke, because it's Klinger, we can do the joke, and it's understandable that it is a joke, a bit of comedy for us. But the rest of it, outside of some of the stuff for Flag, is taken seriously, which, like I said earlier, and I'll say again in my conclusion, I really liked. But those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you always.